So when we started studying people that were healing in this work, that were diagnosed, a lot of them with immune-mediated conditions, Mark.
Like autoimmune diseases and...
Yeah, autoimmune diseases, from cancer to rheumatoid to everything in between. They noticed that when they started doing the meditations, their well-being came back, but their blood values and their markers never changed. And it occurred to them, my God, I have a great meditation, I feel amazing. But then when I get up, I return back to the same worrying person. Now I gotta step it up. I gotta make the changes with my eyes open. And when they started doing it with their eyes open, that's when we started seeing the blood values and everything changing. So in our retreats, you can sit as it and get really good at it, but then there's 4 types of meditation. There's a seated, there's a standing, there's a walking, and there's a laying down. And so if you're going to become that person you want to become, you better be able to practice doing it with your eyes open. So we teach people, 1,000, 1,500 people on a beach or in a park. It's really cool to watch. Everybody get that, open their hearts, get in that elevated state and move into a new state of being. And then let's open our eyes. And now let's practice walking with our eyes open as that person. No different than rehearsing for a play or rehearsing and becoming that person. And if you do it enough times and a person understands that if they could really, how would I walk if I could heal my body in an hour? Who am I going to leave behind here and who am I going to walk as? And a lot of people just hit it. And when they do, you see dramatic changes in their health because they're actually embodying the energy of their future. So we practice sitting, we practice standing and walking, we practice laying down. We practice it all ways because we want the person to become that very person in 1 week. And if they do, our research shows there's dramatic biological markers that change, not small amounts, like thousands.
What are you seeing?
Wow, oh my God. We're just everything from methylated DNA to changes in cytokines, the changes in immune markers, to suppression of ATP in cancer cells, to downregulating genes for Alzheimer's. And we just see dramatic changes in people's biology. I'd like to simplify it for the average person, for us regular people, and it's really simple. I mean, your body's a protein-producing machine, and muscle cells make muscle proteins. They're called actin and myosin. Skin cells make skin proteins. They're called collagen and elastin. Stomach cells make stomach proteins. They're called enzymes. And every cell in your body except red blood cells makes proteins, and proteins are responsible for structure, holding it together, and function and physiology, how we work. It's messengers, right? But in order for a cell to make a protein, a gene has to be regulated. So they used to say genes create disease. Well, you know this, less than 1% of the people on the planet are born with a genetic health condition. Everything else is lifestyle, it's behavior, it's stress. So then is it possible then that if they say now, well, genes don't create disease, it's the environment that signals the gene that creates disease. Take 2 identical twins. You watch one age dies at 54, the other one lives to 83. They don't even look like the same person, share the same genome. Well, the environment was signaling the gene expression to make certain proteins, and the person develops a different condition because it's the environment that does that. But now here's the problem. But if the environment signals the gene, the outer environment of the cell is the inner environment of the body. And what is that? That's the emotions, or chemical, physical, and emotional balance that we have to maintain. So if a person's just constantly living in fear, and it's even if the environment is wonderful and they're on vacation, and they keep remembering an event or anticipating a future, and they're bringing up the emotion of anxiety and fear, it makes sense then that the person's signaling the gene outside of the outer environment because they're making the emotion in their inner environment, and there's no difference. And so if that happens, the constant effect by the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease. And if you can turn on that stress response just by thinking about your problems, then your thoughts are literally going to make you sick. Yeah. So if your thoughts can make you sick, can your thoughts make you well? And you cannot begin to see changes in a person's health until they stop regulating the same genes the same way, and they start up-regulating new genes and down-regulating old genes. And if they do that, they start producing different enzymes and different chemicals and different hormones, and their body begins to scale in a different direction. I'm a pragmatist. You want to talk about quantum superimposition? To me, if it has no effect on my life, I'm not interested. But if it has if there's a practical application, I'm interested in the practical application. So we look at, I was going to say, we have over 13,000 brain scans now. We look at real-time brain scans. I'm looking at your brain in a 1 hour, an hour and 10-minute meditation. At certain moments, I'm watching what you're doing, if you can actually change your brain waves, and if you can sustain those changes, and can you do it again and make it a habit? Can you make it a skill? Can you repeat it enough times that you can do it more automatically? So I'm watching the words. We're watching the words that I'm saying. I'm not studying any tradition, any ancient scriptures. I think that the moment you start talking religion or tradition or scriptures or spirituality, you're going to divide an audience. I think science creates community. And so what we do is we've actually created, when you see a person move into love or gratitude, and you see what that does to the brain in an instant, it informs the brain to be creative. When you see that and you see this dance between the two, you turn around and you look at that person and they got this big smile on their face. They're so in love with the moment, they don't want it to end. They're in and there's very strong biological changes. So we're looking at scans of hearts and brains. We're looking at collective scans of people just to see if we can demystify the process. I don't want to shut an audience off with a word. I want to create new words that are science-based. So the meditations that we teach all have meaning behind what we're doing, because we've studied the scans and studied the effects, and it has certain intentions of why we're doing it, whether we want to signal new genes, whether we want to create more brain coherence, more heart coherence, we want to create coherence between the brain and the heart. I mean, what is it that we want to do? So we have different meditations, for different intentions, really. Consciousness is awareness. The moment you become aware of possibilities that you were unaware of, now they exist. And that means that other people can step into those footprints, not just as a possibility, but witnessing the possibility in front of them is truth. Because the person who's standing on the stage, who's talking about how their stage 4 cancer went into remission and there's no metastasis in any bone PET scan, and you can see the before and after, I'm looking at the audience and everybody is leaning in. You know why? Because they're looking at truth. They're staring truth right in the face, and they can't deny it. And that person isn't telling a glamorous story. They're going to tell you the real facts of what happened to them, and it's going to be relatable. And so we have really compelling evidence in our scientific studies. And we have really compelling evidence in our testimonies of students in this work. And incredible. Evidence is the loudest voice, and that's what's going to make a difference. So the moment you start becoming conscious of those unconscious thoughts, the moment you become aware of your automatic habits and behaviors, the moment you can notice that this is actually guilt that you're feeling, or sadness or pain, the moment you can become conscious and familiar with those states of mind and body, if you keep becoming familiar with it, if you keep becoming conscious of it, you won't go unconscious. So sitting in a meditation to know thyself, most people all of a sudden, here comes the barrage of thoughts. Here comes the propensities and habits, and here comes the emotions. The body's saying, you normally complain at this time. What are you doing sitting with your eyes closed? Let's think of a reason why you can complain. And the body starts influencing the mind. So if you break it down to for a person to understand, how many times do we have to forget until we start remembering and keep remembering and stop forgetting? That's the process of change. So then you put a person in a meditation and they hear that voice, they hear that chatter, they want to get up and go to the bathroom, they want to check their cell phone, they want to feel angry. And instead of getting up and saying, I can't meditate, see, they're coming to the end of the known. So they want to go back to what's known, right? If you teach the person what to do, and you show them that on the other side of that is freedom, On the other side of that is joy. You got to become so conscious, and it takes a lot of awareness. It takes a lot of energy to sit with yourself long enough to disentangle from those programs. Now, we now know that it's a formula, that if you follow a formula, you will actually start pruning circuitry. You'll stop the conditioning process and move the body out of the past, and it starts liberating energy. And that's energy to heal with. That's energy to create a new life. That's energy to digest again. The body's no longer living in survival or living in emergency. And the majority of people's emotions then tend to be derived from the hormones of stress. And so that we started realizing that the arousal of the stress hormones, the rush of the chemistry, is actually tapping the body's resources. And the stronger the emotions we feel towards any problem or person in our life, the more we pay attention to them. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, then you're giving your power away to that person or problem. And if a person can learn to sit in the fire and say, it's not my boss, it's not my ex, it's not my job, it's not the pandemic, it's me. That this emotion isn't serving me because this emotion is the exact emotion that's pushing the genetic buttons that's creating disease. Okay, if I can keep practicing lowering the volume to that emotion, I'll keep taking my attention off that person or problem. And in a sense, the body starts moving back where? Into the present moment. It starts getting relaxed in the unknown. So we started teaching people the process, and by a person overcoming their past, not the trauma, just the emotion. They just have to work on breaking that conditioning process, because if you keep doing it over and over again, a habit is when the body becomes the mind. Now the servant, now the body's influencing the mind. So we teach a person then how to break that conditioning process. The body starts moving into the present moment. It's no longer in the same environmental condition. And then all of a sudden, we start to see some pretty dramatic changes in people's health.